Hello, everyone, and welcome to another podcast here with Hola Prime. We're joined by two traders, James and Richard, who are very much based in commodities. They also do Forex, stocks, pretty much the whole spectrum of the financial market. So two very qualified individuals. And as of the date of recording, today is Trump's inauguration. So the 20th of January, 2025. And this whole podcast is really going to be about Trump, his policies, and how they could affect the broader markets. And also, investor sentiment about Trump becoming president. So I would like to say welcome to both James and Richard. Thanks for coming on.
Hello.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. Hi, James.
Hello.
Sammy.
Hello.
Hello.
How's it going?
So we're just going to pretty much go really quick into both, both of you guys and what you guys do in terms of trading, if there's any particular asset you like to trade. So Richard, if you would like to start and just give us a quick background.
Yeah, I've been trading for close to 15 years now. First started off with a bit of Forex. Worked a little bit on the trading floor here in Cape Town. I'm South African, by the way. Live in Cape Town. I believe James here as well. So, then I've actually done a few mentorship roles during the years as well. I do trade my own account as well, but I prefer to trade the indices, American indices. I don't trade South African stuff, to be honest with you. So that'd be the mini ES, the Nasdaq. I do enjoy trade crude oil as well. Lost a lot of money trading crude oil in the beginning days, but still enjoy trading crude oil with these volatility and so forth. Yeah, I do dab in a little bit of a crypto now and then, but that's mostly just buying at exchange and investing for the long term. I do have strategies that I specifically trade on the ES, the Nasdaq, and crude oil specifically. It's geared towards trading those three markets, and I day trade them on a weekly basis. So yeah, that's pretty much my background. I can also trade options. I do enjoy trading options from time to time. So yeah, all over the place, to be dead honest with you.
That's amazing. That's really good to hear. And James, a bit of background about yourself for the viewers.
Yeah, well, I'm a bit too old for day trading now, I think. So that's what happens. You start off as a day trader and you become
Yeah.
a swing trader and then an investor eventually. So I've been trading since 1995 or six,
Wow.
and I trade right across the spectrum of various instruments and markets. And I kind of weight those markets depending on in my trading portfolio. It's a trading portfolio, so I don't day trade, but I weight my portfolio according to the market sectors that I think are probably the most interesting at the time. But I'm generally in most instruments most of the time. I'm never really flat in the market.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Amazing. So we have a day trader and a swing trader, both with lots of experience in the market. So this should be a really interesting podcast. We're going to get straight into it. So Trump, we all know he's becoming president of the United States. I guess the main question, or I guess what the world is really asking is, what do you see that Trump's presidency could affect the markets or the broader markets as a whole? Do you have any thoughts, maybe? I mean, I know it's hard to predict, obviously. Anything can happen. But knowing what you know about Trump, his character, his position, how do you feel that would affect any of the markets, or is any particular market you feel might be affected more than others?
Yeah, I follow American politics really closely, so I'm pretty familiar with what's going on. It affects my trading in a great deal of different ways.
Hmm.
I think Trump, I mean, we all know what he's about. We've seen him in one term. We've got another one coming up. I think this one will be more effective in implementing the policies and strategies that he needs to or wants to. Whether they're good or bad is not my comment on this. I think he's got a crack team around him of, you could call them technocrats, I suppose, but definitely smart people. And I think there are going to be some market structural shifts that will be required to make some of the things that he wants to achieve and his team wants to achieve necessary. And that will be mostly I think in the dollar, funny enough. I think the dollar is going to have to weaken.
Yeah.
And I think the oil markets and the natural gas markets and other markets in the energy sector are going to be different depending. So I think, for example, I think the oil price will come down.
Mm.
I'm pretty short on oil myself. I have been for about a year now, and it's been coming down consistently. I'm long on the natural gas market in the short term. I think when I say short term, in a swing trader sense, in the next year or so, I think there will be a move to more exporting of LNG, which will put increase demand in the US. I think that market's got some upside to it. And then I think when it comes to the dollar, I think a weaker dollar and a greater an increase in monetary supply, money supply, M2 money supply is going to be needed to get some of the things going that he wants. And therefore, I think there's going to be more money printed. I think the dollar will weaken, and I think um, I think currencies in general will lose value. But I think the dollar potentially the fastest, and those fiat currencies will lose against gold, potentially silver as another big runner, and of course cryptocurrencies, mostly
Yeah.
Bitcoin. So that's my weighting currently. I'm quite heavy into non-fiat currencies. I'm going to call them that. I'm talking about metals and cryptocurrency. I'm short on oil, and I think that'll be for the next number of years, and perhaps long on natural gas. And then when it comes to, so generally currencies, I think will all start to weaken against these other assets, but I think the dollar will necessarily need to come down faster than the other currencies.
Mm.
And that will require printing of money and loosening of monetary policy,
Yeah.
which I think is going to have to happen.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I do think Trump is trying to attract as much trade as possible as well in the US. Um, so I think you're absolutely spot on. Um, so that's a swing trader's perspective. I mean, day traders in terms of news, uh, it doesn't, I mean, it affects us naturally, of course, we don't have to be as in tune with the fundamentals because, I mean, when you say day trader, whether you're a scalper or someone who holds for a few hours, maybe a day, obviously there's a big difference in that. But Richard, you as a day trader, how would you agree with what James said, or do you have a different view?
I would definitely share his sentiments over there. Day trade, I do not specifically. I have to trade every day. It's only if my setup happens according to my strategies. And yeah, if I get in a good position, I can hold overnight as well. So a bit of like a intraday swing mostly.
Yeah,
But I do share James' sentiments there. Now, obviously, a very difficult one. We don't know how the market's going to react with all of Trump's different policies that he has. I mean, some of them you might say are pretty aggressive. Whether that's good for the markets or not, it's all about people's and investors'
mm,
perceptions. I think Trump's presidency is going to be really good for the markets. Which markets that might be? I think the industry still got some upside. I'm a bit cautious at the moment. If we do see more upside with new all-time highs in, especially when I follow the ES and Nasdaq, so forth, that I do think we're going to enter into a period of very high volatility, which can be good for day trading. And I'm just talking about the indices here now, just looking at the structural, or what we call waves, or the sequences or phases that the market's been, painting out over the past couple of years or so that I've been following. So do look at the bigger picture of stuff as well. One thing, although you agree or not with his policy about the mass deportation that he wants to do, there's a lot of people, or let's say investors, political pressure that's going to be watching this very closely. So I think there's a lot of fear in the markets, uncertainty, and with that generally comes a lot of volatility as well.
yeah,
So, is it going to happen tomorrow? Of course, the markets are closed today. Obviously, is it going to happen in a week's time, month's time? Who knows? So I'm really trading on the cautious side here on the indices. I think with the volatility, I would not be surprised we can start seeing some downside, but I'll be treating it as corrective in nature. And obviously, volatility can be really good for a day trader as well. You stick to your strategy and so forth. But yeah, I think if a lot of issues are going to come with the massive potations and all the other policies that he has, you know, gold might be continuing higher.
Mm.
I'm also sort of sharing the sentiment with you guys that the dollar index needs to weaken a little bit, and as well as crude oil potentially also moving lower or starting to, well, it's actually had a nice decent bounce recently, but in the bigger picture, which I'm also looking at, James, also think there's some more downside potential for crude oil.
Yeah. No, I agree as
Uh,
well.
Sorry, to Richard, your point on volatility, I think is, I used to be a day trader, so there's nothing more frustrating for a day trader when the market moves, like in currency terms, 30 pips a day or 50 pips
Yeah.
a day,
Mm.
for weeks on end, and that does happen sometimes.
Yes.
Um, but we've been seeing moves. It's actually been quiet for the last week or two, but we've seen moves of 120, 150, 100, 200 pips a day. And I think that's going to be more of the norm certainly in the first quarter, and also in the indices. You've seen on the Nasdaq since the election result, the Nasdaq and the S&P have increased in volatility significantly, and actually, the Nasdaq and the S&P have been both day traders' dreams in the last 4 weeks,
For sure. And when you do get
in a
that
range
volatile
with
swing, it
massive
actually
swings from
lasts
the
and
top to the
extends.
bottom, and that's what you want. So I think
Yeah.
day traders will be happy. Swing traders, it's a little bit more difficult actually.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
you don't want to be, large swings are not the best thing for swing traders.
Yeah. You want
For
more
sure.
stable markets, don't you? I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah,
you want nice stability. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Volatility. I love when the market's a bit more volatile. It gives me more opportunity, I think, as well as a day trader.
sure.
When the market's too quiet, doesn't really move much, or if it's boring, so to speak, you could sometimes just don't get those setups, occurring. But yeah, and I think volatility going forward, you're absolutely right. Trump, in his own character, is quite a volatile guy. I think most people
Yeah.
would agree with that.
Mhm.
So it kind of reflects, strangely, his personality in the market. And I think
Sure.
that is a general sentiment that, as a whole, no one truly knows. But I think people, investors as a whole, the market as a whole, I think they see Trump as a better choice
Yeah.
for the United States. So and I think also because Trump is quite a captivating individual, and the people who are loyal to Trump, they're very loyal to Trump, and regardless whether you believe one of his policies are good or bad, if you're very loyal to him as well, I think that can also be quite an oversight in terms of um, investors. If they like Trump and they believe in Trump, even if they see something that might not be that good for the future, they will continue to be quite bullish on it. Does that make sense? Because
Yeah.
they almost, they investors as a whole, it is just psychology as a whole, and
Yeah.
he's quite captivating. I don't think there's really been a president that has had such a loyal, I wouldn't say fan base, but
Yeah.
for a better word, fan base essentially. So it
I
could
also
be,
think, sorry, just to
yeah,
interrupt there,
please.
like with JD Vance being the deputy president there, um, I think a lot of investors also looking past the next term that Trump will be, in charge of things. And I wouldn't be surprised if we hear more and more about JD Vance. He obviously doesn't speak his mind as much. Whatever comes in Trump's head, he'll just like spew out there, and however the markets take that or the news channels or whatever. I think he's a bit more relaxed, a very good speaker. And, whether you like the Republicans or not, I think JD Vance is a really good candidate to take over from Trump, obviously, if they do win again.
Yeah,
So, yeah, it's going to be
awesome.
interesting.
Oh, it definitely will. I think 2025 is going to be it's going to be great for traders as a whole, as long as you're on the right side of the market, of course. it can always be,
Yeah.
it's a double-edged sword at the end of the day. If you're on the wrong side of the market, it can destroy you. But no. Um, so let's start talking a bit more about. So we've spoken about Trump and trader sentiment as a whole. and which industries we feel might be affected by his presidency. Let's talk about the global market as a whole. So we're very much based on the US dollar at the moment, but let's talk about other, big emerging nations. Let's talk about China. There has been, I wouldn't say, well, you could say tension, but there's been quite a bit of competition in the past, US and China. China is developing, well, they are developed, but they're growing massively in so many different sectors. And I feel that the US dollar, sorry, not the US dollar, the US is scared, not scared, but they see the threat.
Cautious.
Cautious, exactly. Trump is someone who I feel doesn't really get bullied that easily. What do you think? How that could play out in the future? The US versus China, essentially, the whole finance war that's going on, essentially. Do you
Well,
feel?
from what I
Well,
remember, James, you go first. Sorry.
Yeah, please.
sure. Sorry. Well, look, I think Trump, I think he's misunderstood. I think he's actually a reconciliatory sort of person and not.
Mm,
I mean, he's clearly to some extent, anti-war. He's not anti-competition and anti-tariffs, but I think a lot of that's just threats. The US knows very well, and his whole advisory team is full of technocrats, I called them earlier, who know very well what a relationship with China means to the US, not only in manufacturing, but also in technology, and also supply of various minerals and raw materials and agricultural products, all sorts of reasons why China and the US need to be friends.
yeah.
So I don't take these tariff threats too seriously. I think there may be some token tariffs. I don't know if they'll last too long, but I think the US's best interest is to forge a decent, strong, and workable relationship with China. And I think Trump and his whole team know that. So I don't think there's any threat from China. I think there's only opportunity if it's worked properly.
Mm,
Don't go kicking out DJI drones because you can't make your own. Don't kick out TikTok because Facebook isn't as good. Try and
mm.
work with the Chinese and try and, monetize these things and make them beneficial to both countries. And I think that's the way it's going to go. I'm not worried about it at all. I think actually there's great opportunity going forward with China.
I think you're spot on because actually, I just read, I think it was today in the morning, that Trump is going to delay the whole TikTok ban. So he's not, like you said, I think he does see the benefit of actually working together, that it could be advantageous to both nations rather than, just all out war. And yeah,
Like a
absolutely.
businessman.
Exactly. And
Yeah, I
that's
think there
essentially
is
what he
there
is.
is one major fly in that ointment, and that is the Taiwan problem.
Mm,
Yeah.
And I don't think China's going to give up on that very
no.
easily, if at all. And I think that's going to have to be navigated really, really carefully because that, it's an incredibly important strategic island for both countries or both continents. So yeah, I think that's a potential problem, but otherwise, I think most of the things can be sorted out quite amicably. There is another thing that also worries me slightly, and that's Tesla and their relationship, and maybe even Apple and their relationship with Chinese manufacturing and Chinese tech,
Mm,
and how that's going to work out, because that's a very hotly competed sector, the EV
Yeah.
market
yeah.
and the cell phone market. And but I do think so. I've started buying palladium, for example, which is used in catalytic converters for ICE cars,
Mhm.
because I think there's going to be a bit of resurgence in hybrid or petrol type engines, which will take some of the focus off this new clean green deal and EVs and
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
solar and wind power and all that sort of thing. And I think we'll see more of a relaxation into harder, less green energies, put it that way. So
Yeah.
I think those are the two sticking points, Apple and Tesla, and then Taiwan, as I said before. But I think apart from that, I'm not too worried about China.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, Trump's been a really good mediator, keeping, sort of bit of world peace during his previous tenure.
Yeah.
We'll see if that occurs now again. Ceasefire in Gaza, for
Yeah.
example. Can he keep it like that. I mean, does he have the power to do that? Who knows? But coming back to the China thing, I was a bit off topic there. I can't remember the guy's name, but one of their top politicians is actually attending the inauguration.
Hmm.
Just showing their presence. So I would probably see that as a little bit of like a good thing.
Mm.
I mean, he went previously and went to go meet the president himself. I mean, he even went to North Korea to meet what's his name at the border.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's not a softie, that's for sure.
Yeah.
There will definitely be some issues, I believe, especially with trade and so forth. But I do think that yeah, you have to keep you can't say your enemies close, but not that they are enemies, but I think Trump knows that he needs to keep them happy in some way to sort of, prevent trade disasters or bigger stuff like that. So yeah,
Yeah.
share most of the sentiment that James actually talked about there as well. Especially the EV market. I think was it Toyota that's sort of like backing off their EVs at the moment, big time. So they're more invested into the hybrids again.
Mm.
Makes for me a bit more sense, to be honest. Basically, the
Yeah.
whole world's not 100% ready to go full EV,
No,
although that's what
absolutely.
they like to tell you,
Yeah.
but it's just not possible at all.
No.
Don't know if you know what's like here in South Africa. There's just no way that that's going to happen. So, yeah, that might be a bit hard for companies like Tesla. What they're going to do, who knows? But yeah, since your question is about China, I think Trump's is a business-minded person, but what I did like during his previous tenure is that he would actually go and visit these presidents and talk about these things. But I
Hmm.
don't think Biden was really doing that too often.
No.
I mean,
And Trump
yeah,
feels very much like you said, he can't be bullied and he can't be bought. And I think that gives a lot of confidence as a whole, for
yeah,
people who back him, that he'll do what is right for the country and for America rather than what's right for someone else, so to
yeah,
speak. And that might be harsh but in terms of investor standpoint, that's music to the ears. Do you see what I mean for the US economy? So, um,
Yeah. Richard, you mentioned war
mm,
and solving war problems. I think so. Energy stocks and or energies in general, and as opposed, so energy stocks and war stocks normally go together. I think we might see
correct.
some divergence in the next couple of years, and that will maybe should be disinvesting into the defense sector and looking at energy opportunities, including uranium. I'm still very interested in uranium, and there's been talk in the US about nuclear for the first time in quite a long time. There's obviously, it's been adopted in some parts of Europe and in China, but I think the US is beginning to look at that. There's one thing that's for sure, and that is the world needs more energy and a lot more energy going forward
mm,
into the future because everything that we do now requires so much more energy. Everything in my office is burning up, thousands of kilojoules every second.
Yeah,
Computers everywhere, and there's Bitcoin, and there's everything's going. And I think that's another reason why the silver industry or the silver price is interesting as well, because that's the main place that silver goes into. So I think energy, and you could even talked about palladium earlier. Palladium's part of that equation in terms of
yeah,
ICE engines. So I think the energy sector is going to be incredibly interesting. And the defense stocks, I think, probably will drop down a bit because of those dynamics.
mm.
But there is one thing that's for sure, and that the energy sector is going to carry on growing. It
Oh
doesn't
yeah,
mean the price is going to carry on going up,
yeah,
but it means that this is becoming a vaster and vaster sector. They're going to have to be more innovative ways to
yeah.
get energy into our gadgets and devices.
yeah,
And
Agreed.
I think it's going to be fascinating.
yeah,
Very awesome.
absolutely. Um, I wanted to quickly touch upon BRICS, the alliance basically between, I believe it's China, Russia, India, South Africa. There was a lot of talk, obviously, and I think the Saudis have joined last year. Um, and there was a lot of talk, and they ended the petrodollar agreement back then, which was, pretty big. Considering it was going on for decades, essentially, that all Saudi oil would be sold in US dollars, and now that agreement has ended. Um, there was a lot of talk about, is this the end for the US dollar? Is this the end for, the US as a whole? Um, Naturally, of course, like, yeah, you do expect it to be, further competition, so it might weaken the US dollar for a bit. But do you think it really is such a big deal as people made out at the time, especially from a swing trader's perspective, more in the long term? Do you see BRICS as like a genuine, oh, this could be the final nail in the coffin, or?
No.
I've been to many of the countries that are part of the BRICS collusion, and
Mm,
even within any of those countries, they can't organize anything themselves. And I'd very much doubt that a collusion of those sorts of countries can make any progress of any meaningful manner in any meaningful manner. And if they are proposing a BRICS currency, which I think they are or aren't, who knows, I don't think it's got any chance whatsoever. So there are other alternatives to fiat currencies already available,
yeah,
and
Yeah, it's
Bitcoin. Let's
just a
just
bunch of
start with
hot air, in
Bitcoin.
my opinion. I don't think it's going to happen at all. I mean, there's
yeah,
been
Yeah.
this huge movement, after Trump. Then Biden sort of like, globally, I don't know, a lot of things that happened there was a lot of drive that Trump's bad, America's bad. The dollar went down, and people were saying that's the death of the dollar. But as soon as you read these things, normally go the opposite way because it's just it's just talk. So with his slogan at the moment, "Make America Great Again," if he can, get to that powerhouse that they used to be, it's going to be good for the dollar. Whether the dollar goes up or down, it's still the major paid currency
mm,
across the world. So this whole thing, like me and James live in South Africa, and us being part of the BRICS, going for little chats mostly about just eating nice food and staying in a nice hotel for them rather than actually getting anywhere with this talk. I think it's just a waste of time, and I do not believe that the dollar would, or that the BRICS would actually generate their own sort of currency or depeg
mm,
from the American dollar. I don't think there's a chance that's going to happen. Not with Trump actually entering into the next term at the moment. So that's
yeah,
just my two
Yeah,
cents
and
on it.
it's the whole thing of banding up, ganging up against the US. Well,
Yeah,
good luck with that.
yeah,
Um, I don't give them any chance of even being cohesive together, let alone managing to, you know, gang up against another major, the only superpower really that's left in the world now. That's America. I don't think they've got any chance, and before long they'll be fighting amongst each other. And fighting inside their own countries goes on all day long, every day. So
yeah.
I don't think there's a
absolutely.
chance of that
Look, well,
really
one of
being
the
a threat.
biggest things as traders is to, block out that noise that you normally get from the big talking heads.
Mm,
Trade what you see and what you believe your plan's going to be and stick with it. I mean, how many times have we been talking about this? And this has been years and years and years, and nothing happened. So I don't think anything's going to happen, to be dead honest with you.
interesting. Oh, very interesting take. So you really have two sides: people who believe that it's going to be the end for the US dollar, and investors who believe, it probably just won't happen.
Yeah,
It's a lot of talk essentially, and like you
Sam, you,
said,
you just have to live in Russia or Brazil or in South Africa for a year, and you'll know why it's not going to work.
Something like Bitcoin, for example, I think there's going to be way more adaptation. The other
mm,
currencies or utility type of cryptos as well. Trump is sort of pro crypto, which is good for the crypto markets. But have we really seen that sort of like adaptation all over the show? I think there's going to be a bit more of that. Um, but in the end, people were saying also Bitcoin's going to become the next, currency. I can't see that happening either
yeah,
because if
neither.
you have to withdraw it to fiat, you have to go through an exchange to do it. And what you're going to get your dollars or the currency of the country you live in. So, but definitely do think there's some growth in the crypto market. But is the dollar going to lose its shine? Don't think so.
Uh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't think Bitcoin's going to replace the US dollar. It will always be something people like to trade, but I don't think, you know, in the future that wherever you go, you can just, whip out a card and pay with Bitcoin. I just don't think businesses as a whole will adopt it. It's too volatile at the moment. I mean, imagine
Yeah.
you sold something
Yeah.
and I don't know, say you're in B2B sales and high ticket sales and you sold something for $250,000 and then Bitcoin crashes.
Yeah.
You lose half your money, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just too people
In a
don't
matter of days. Yeah.
yeah,
A matter of
it
hours.
won't happen. But I do see the technology maybe
Yeah.
being implemented like a CDC essentially, being implemented, for the US dollar or so, being more digitized. I can definitely see cashes, on the way out. I mean, that's pretty obvious for most people. Um, so yeah, I do see that there could be things taken from the crypto market and put over into the fiat currencies. I can see that happening.
Yeah,
But
like
Bitcoin
XRP or
itself,
Ripple in transfers, the speed of
yeah,
how fast that happens and that sort of stuff.
yeah,
But will banks allow that? Because, there's a reason you don't get your money when you transfer it and you wait a few days.
yeah. Well,
That
yeah. If
sort
they
of thing.
can't, they can't make
Yeah.
the same amount of
Um,
money, then no.
do, do you know there's a town in South Africa that runs on Bitcoin?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh wow, that,
It's
that's
called
amazing.
in English it's called White Sands. It's
Uh-huh.
in Afrikaans it's Witstrand.
Mhm.
Oh,
And their entire I don't think it's solely Bitcoin, but it's quite a large portion of what they
Majority.
do. So you go into any shop or business and you pay and transact in Bitcoin. It's probably not the ideal instrument for that sort of thing. Maybe um, Ripple is a better idea, but there are actually towns in a third world country using Bitcoin
That's crazy.
and is that just to
as
be completely, cut off from government and so forth? Is that
yeah,
essentially what it is? Like a
I think it's a bit of an alternative sort of community
yeah.
who don't want to be involved with government and tax and whatever else is going on. Um, I haven't been there. I'd like to go and visit, but I mean,
Me
I
too.
think I
Let me know
think
when you
some sort
go,
of
James. You can take a road
I,
trip.
but that you're quite right, Richard. I wouldn't like to use any of my Bitcoin to buy a liter of Coke and a packet of crisps using my Bitcoin right now.
No,
Yeah.
not this. Not. Must pay there.
uh, it'll be like the story of the guy who, what was it, bought pizza and now
Yeah.
it cost him, I don't know, millions or whatever it was.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Painful.
yeah. I
But
saw
yeah,
on X today a couple of people posted they've just become Bitcoin billionaires.
mm,
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah,
that's insane.
quite quite a thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of like investment opportunities, Bitcoin was probably the biggest. I mean, name me any stock, anything that has risen like Bitcoin. It's just nowhere near. I mean, it's just
Yeah,
biggest missed opportunity essentially. But no one would have known at the time. I mean, it was. Fun fact, actually, I did own Bitcoin when it was quite new. I have no idea where it's now. I
Me
mean,
too.
that's
I had
long
three of
gone.
them, and it was all a
Yeah.
scam. The guy that sold it never really existed.
Ah.
But
Ah.
there you go. You say like, listen, if I only held it, it's like I think if it just doubled, you go like, yeah,
Exactly. You would have
cash out.
sold. That's it.
And
So
it's that's the hardest part of all of it. It's like, yeah, they say like, I could have made so much, but like if that thing hit 5,000, $6,000 a Bitcoin, you're more than likely to go and withdraw that. And then yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
kick
I
Really
mean,
your
difficult to hold on
backside.
to.
You see where prices right now.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I
It's
barely
when you look
hold.
in the rear view mirror and see where it's come from. That's what, and how far it's come. That's what makes people nervous and get FUD, F-U-D.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there's a very good sort of saying in trading that don't look behind, look forward. And if you sort of squash your charts around and contract the range a little bit on Bitcoin, make it logarithmic and not
Yes.
natural and that sort of thing, you can easily project that out to 150, 250, 550 in the next few months. A lot of people do that. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but if you look in the rear view mirror and say, well, it was trading at a dollar and now it's $100,000, you obviously think, well, I should take my profit right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot
Um,
of people are doing that. As soon as it hits
yeah,
100K, people, it just keeps dipping. I think it's very hard to keep holding it, even if they believe, maybe in 5 years it will be 200K or 300, whatever.
But it's sitting against
Psychologically,
30-40% decline when it goes through a
that's it.
massive
I mean,
yeah,
you got to have
correction. Yeah.
balls of steel. I mean, especially
Yeah.
if this could, set you up for life. Say you have quite a few of them.
yeah, yeah. I've been long since 29,000. I got in a bit late.
Wow. I hit late. I mean,
Now, and when I was buying at 29,000, people were saying, "Man, this is the top. You're way, you got in so late. It's too, I mean, it was late, but not too late."
No. When is
So
too late?
people will be saying, perhaps people were saying, "Well, I got in at 100,000, and in a year's time, it's at 700,000," and they'll say, "Well, I got in a bit late, but it's okay." But
Yeah.
it's very difficult to manage it psychologically if you look behind you. So try and look forward. I think that's the main thing. So be optimistic, and I think that's what Trump's brought into this market is optimism in general, in America, in Bitcoin, in the energy markets improving in terms of affordability, in bringing, just bring inflation down, in bringing a bit more unity to the whole political spectrum. And
Yeah.
I think that optimism is difficult to extinguish, and I think it's going to pervade,
mm,
prevail going forward, at least for the next 6 to 9 months, I would imagine.
yeah. Well, that's interesting. So you believe that crypto under Trump is good, essentially. Short form.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
my target for Bitcoin, my immediate target, and I think in the next 4 to 8 weeks is 140,000. After that, that's just a fib extension. It's not anything magical. It's just the
Right.
next fib. Then there's 160. So somewhere between 140 and 160. And then after that, I have no idea.
Yeah.
It could go to 300 or it could go back to 70 or 60, So I don't know.
I think
Yeah.
there's such belief in Bitcoin. I mean, it will dip, of course. It always dips as people pull out, but um, unless there's policies get put in place that kind of restricts crypto as a whole, I think it's going to just long term keep going up. So because people just believe in it
Yeah, I mean,
so
it
deeply.
survived so many potholes before, and all
Yeah,
these doubters and stuff that were so vocal about these things, like you don't hear from them now again.
yeah,
Still going
absolutely,
up, going up, going up. It's really, really is a special time to be living in, especially with
absolutely.
crypto and checking how that market's just gone, I don't know, absolutely lift off mode.
And you have guys like, richest person alive, Elon Musk, who, famously loves crypto, you
Yeah.
know, um, that adds credibility, no matter how you put it, even though crypto is the new kid on the block. And I feel a lot of traditional investors like to not look down on it, but kind of say, it's a bit gimmicky. Um, the reality is, I mean, there is credibility there. I mean, yes, it hasn't really been adopted like a fiat currency. Like you can't really buy. I mean, you can buy stuff, and certain stores will allow you to use it, but very minimal. But as a whole, people believe in it so much. If it does get adopted in any, major, I think Tesla at one point didn't they accept Bitcoin or
Yeah,
something?
they did. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
didn't go too well, I don't think, because they it
No.
literally dipped quite a bit after that. But nevertheless, I mean, it kind of shows if a few major players were to
Yeah.
take that. I
Yeah.
mean,
So what does a Tesla cost? Like half a Bitcoin now.
yeah, crazy,
Yeah,
Crazy, right?
it is.
absolutely insane. But yeah, no, it's been really interesting. We're gonna almost wrap it up. I think just we covered crypto, which was very good. Uh, Forex as a whole, I mean, the Forex market, a lot more stable than obviously cryptocurrencies. Do you see any major shifts in any particular pairs going forward with Trump? I know that's a very hard um, thing to predict because there's so many factors that affect currencies. But is there any like particular currency that you have like a really strong sentiment? Maybe I don't know. You feel that the pound US dollar might drop, or you might be, bearish on the pound US dollar or whatever. Like, is there any particular sentiment or reason you have for that sentiment due to Trump, or is it just as the news comes in, as his policies come out, you're going to react as it all surfaces?
Richard, do you want to?
Oh, you go first, James. You're more
Oh,
on the
okay.
Forex side than I am, but I'll give
Yeah.
my.
So I look. I mean, currencies often so they're quite forward-looking. So apart from the immediate thing like interest rates and various economic reports and so on, which affect the fluctuations intraday and so on, they're quite forward-looking. So that's why the NFP, the jobs report, affects it so much.
Mm,
Looking at the economy in general, and I do think that there's going to be. I'm a little worried about inflation coming back. I think there's going to be an increase in M2 money supply, and I
yeah,
think the dollar is going to necessarily have to weaken against other currencies. So, and on top of that, and for the reason of US debt and other countries needing to pay the US back and borrowing interest rates, all of that is it's a very difficult situation for the
Mm,
US and other countries. So if the dollar comes back a bit, it'll help, in a whole variety of different ways. But I also think that the commodity, you mentioned this earlier, Sam, commodity currencies in commodity-based countries like perhaps Australia, even South Africa, actually, because
mm,
we've got quite a lot of stuff here that people want in terms of metals and minerals, rare earth
yeah.
stuff as well. And then Australia is a massive country for exporting minerals. So I think those countries might benefit as these markets improve. And I think we'll see an improvement in gold and silver markets and prices,
yeah,
um, platinum, palladium,
Yeah.
uranium, which is also metal.
Mm.
So I think all of it, and all of those are mined in these countries that we've been talking about. Canada is another one which could benefit from certain things. So I think all of those currencies, which are the sort of minor currencies compared to the US dollar, may benefit, and the dollar will probably pull back. I'm worried about the British pound, actually.
oh,
You brought that up as well. We don't
Same
want to
here.
see
yeah.
we don't want to see the Liz Truss effect on the pound again, and
Oh,
I think there's a slight danger of that.
I think after Brexit, after COVID, I mean, there's only you can only go up with the pound. I mean, all the value was sucked out instantly. But no, you're right. In terms of the future, I don't have too high hopes for the pound. But we don't have someone quite like Trump, unfortunately. In terms of someone who's really, backing the UK and
Yeah.
really trying to do the best for the UK. We don't really have that at the moment. And there doesn't really seem to be anything on the horizon that would give investors hope. And foreign investment in the UK is dropping massively. And it's kind of like a sinking ship. And I feel the sentiment just of people, not even investors, just people who live here. Um, the sentiment is pretty bad at the moment. People are
Yeah.
really feeling the effects. So I feel the UK is, I wouldn't say done for. I mean, that's a very very broad statement and big statement, but definitely on the decline and needs something. We just need to start making stuff again. I feel,
Need a
and
strong
just
leader.
getting strong leader. Start elbow grease and just start making stuff, exporting more.
Make
Really,
Britain
just kind
great
of
again.
really just run it as a company, not as a charity. Or do you see
Mm.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, who knows? We might get a Trump based leader in the in the future. We don't know.
Well,
We'll have to
if
see.
if Elon's got anything to do with it, maybe.
Maybe,
And
yeah,
Mr. Starmer his days were probably numbered anyway,
yeah.
irrespective of Elon. I mean, I'm British. I was born in London, so
Oh,
I choose not to live in England. Let's put it that way. And there are quite a lot of people like that. I'm not the
yeah,
only one.
yeah. People are leaving. Quite fast, and a lot of people want to leave even though they can't for various reasons. Yeah, it's a pretty. I think this would be seen as quite a dark period of UK history in terms of
Yeah.
um, the economy and so to speak.
Unfortunate.
Yeah, it,
I do feel like a lot of these things are just like cyclical,
yeah,
as tough as it is. it will hopefully get better. Some
Who knows?
stage.
Yeah, who knows? I mean,
I don't
it's a
think it's
it's a
the
tough one.
end of the
No,
UK.
definitely not the end. But whether we've hit the bottom before we start rising up again, I feel it still a few pips to go. You know?
Absolutely. No, I believe that too.
Yeah. But I
Yeah.
think this was really good, and I think a lot of viewers who are going to watch this, a lot of good information out of this, and I think people, this was really good. Yeah. So I want to thank both of you for coming on, taking the time out to have a chat with me today, and sharing ideas. It's been an absolute pleasure, and feel free to come back at any time. Maybe we'll do it again in the future and
That'll be
see
great.
if our predictions were correct.
Yeah.
Take stock.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome.
So James,
Thank you,
Richard,
Sam.
thank you very
Appreciate
much.
it.
Thanks, guys.
Have a
Great
great
being
one.
here. Have a great rest
Take
of your
care.
day.
Take care. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
And that wraps up this podcast session. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, like it, subscribe, all those usual things. I'm Sam. Thank you for watching. And until next time, we'll see you again very soon. Take care.